Okay, hello everybody. Sprint number 2 is upon us of Project Meteor. So let's finish off sprint number 1, do a quick review and maybe a demo, and then jump right in to sprint planning for sprint number 2 of Project Meteor. So last week we decided to work on 3 separate work streams. To review Elira tutorials and to review the build pipelines and to come up with some crucial metrics for Project Meteor. This sprint was mainly introduction sprint for everybody on board to get to know what we're working with, what we're working on, and so on. So we have 5 different tasks here. Do we have anybody who wants to demo a thing for this sprint?
So we did complete, or I would consider the team to walk through Elira tutorial and collect feedback was completed. The demo that we would have to show would be going through a list of issues that we generated. So I'm not sure if we want to walk through each of those or how we want to go about, if you want to, yeah, basically look here. I don't know if they're actually all linked. If you go to the issues list and filter by project shooting star, that should, or area shooting star, that should show all of the issues that we generated during this sprint. And they are a mix of things while we went through the repo that we were having problems with that should be addressed, as well as like content-based suggestions. But again, I'm not sure necessarily the best way of going through each of these. In a
Michael, is it like if we're going to fix all these issues, is it a more concise story that is presented in the Elira tutorial? So is it mainly addressing user experience, or is that also like back-end hassle, so where technical prerequisites need to be?
So like I would say it's both when we're looking at it. Like, so for example, one of the issues that we came up with was time taken to train the Elira tutorial. One of us thought that the time it takes to go through it is just really long because there's 10 epochs that run, and that could be like a sticking point for a user trying to get through the tutorial. So we went through it and we determined that actually the accuracy is basically unaffected if you only do 1 epoch of training. So one of our suggestions is just to update the tutorial to have the default be 1 epoch instead of 10. So that's like a user experience thing based on like the actual code. Another issue is that, where is it? So this is kind of like a content thing, but it's kind of like a backend thing too. So if you look at remove prerequisite ND and automate the prerequisite setup. So the first step of the demo is to say, okay, you need all of these things set up before you can get started. And that's like antithetical to the project Meteor. So we should be like removing or editing that document so that it's no longer there, but tells you what has been set up for you in the back end. And then that should be, I think Comet should be using that to set those things up for somebody. So it's a mix of all of these things that as users we found to be sticking points, both technically and conceptually. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, because I'm asking. I'm asking that question because I was wondering how are we going to do demos after the first sprint, right? I think we said something like, we should do demos and publish them on YouTube. So now the first sprint is done. So you're supposed to demo stuff now. You delivered 16 issues. That is 16 by 5 minutes. That is a lot of time, and I'm pretty sure it will not be in video, each and every of these issues. so I wonder how we capture the outcome if a bunch of issues as we see them right here is good, or if we somehow need to capture what you just put on the soundtrack, right? You did a voiceover of issue number 28, remove prerequisites, right? So maybe it is a good idea to have something that is kind of summarizing that audio track and really write it down so that we know why, right? Getting rid of all the prerequisites is a good idea because, I mean, that's what we're supposed to deliver, right? An automated thing. So we need to get rid of manually to be established prerequisites. Is it same for the epochs, right? There's a rationale behind why it's okay to reduce from 10 to 1 epoch.
So, I mean, the issue, I guess that context should be presented in the issues as far as what you're saying, like how do we present it in a video format so that it's ingestible by others. Like before this meeting, I could have gone through each of these issues and recorded a 2-minute explanation of it or less.
You did that? That's
no,
what
I
you
said
just
I could. No. I was saying I could.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out what's you're asking for.
I'm not asking you. You're just everybody's just listening and seeing that I'm thinking. So I'm thinking out loud, right? Because I wonder what we are trying to deliver, and what we should capture and how we should capture, right? If we are in full swing and we implement features like automated selection of GPUs, that is a feature that we're going to implement that is easy to demo. You're going to record that stuff, you're going to click around, and it's happening. But this time it feels harder because maybe we should document this context. I'm not really sure if having a bunch of issues is a good document. Maybe we should. I mean, if we are going through the issues right here, right now, it is good because everybody is on the same page, right? Everybody who's listening to the recording or in this meeting understands what's happening if we're going through all the issues. But I think Marcel is mountain biking and hiking right now. How do we transport all that stuff to him and into his brain? And how do we transport all that stuff to Daniel and Chris? So maybe it's good to have some. I'm trying to avoid a user story list, right? Maybe it's good to have like an anchor document we can come back to every time and really say, okay, this is what we wanted to achieve, right? We want to have that automatic deployment of everything.
I don't think a user story is a wrong term, though. I think this perfectly aligns with what Francesco suggested last week.
I just don't want to go into the direction of having a super huge Trello board with 1,500 user stories and everybody got lost. Because that's not how Daniel, I know for sure, consumes stuff. Because he's thinking in documents which have prosa, which is also not good for everybody, right? So I'm trying to figure out what might be the good mix.
Christoph, are you suggesting that we should have like a 1-paragraph summary of all the 14 issues and then just talk about that?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if we have 3 different perspectives on the area of shooting star. I don't know if we have more than 3 perspectives, but maybe that, yeah. I'm just looking for a thing that that we can come back to and everybody understands what we are talking about. I know I'm doing a bad job at what I'm asking for. And I want to have a reference document that we can hand off to others as like a sales proposal. Like, this is what we're going to do.
So that I would say that is definitely our intention for this sprint was kind of to like front load tasks for ourselves. So having them as like 16 separate issues does make a lot of sense. I don't disagree at all that having like a concise higher level document that says this is what we did this sprint. Here's all the links to the issues if you care. And something else that Daniel and Marcel can see is very achievable. It's just not something that we thought we needed to do this sprint.
Yeah,
I think
I'd like to. I just want to add that I think just just retrospecting on what we set the goal of this issue to be, I think a more appropriate goal would have been something like an audit report, or something from a user experience perspective, something like a document or an audit report, just going through the whole tutorial and documenting our whole experience. But that's something we did not really set the goal of the issue to be. We created these one-off issues while going through the whole tutorial, places where we felt that we are facing a blocker. But I agree that probably an audit report or like a documentation of like a UX documentation would have been more appropriate goal of the issue.
I think for this sprint, the list of issues is a completely valid output. And your question, Christoph, makes sense going forward and looking how to demo the progress of Shooting Star workstream going forward. But if we're looking like over our shoulders, what did we achieve over the sprint number 1? In this case, the list of issues seems like a valid output to me in this case.
Yeah, definitely. So 3 things. I'm not saying the list of issues is a not good result, because I think it's a pretty good result, because we know what's happening. Like Michael said, we are trying to preload the queue, basically, the backlog. Andrea, audit report, I don't like governance and policy and stuff like that. Audit report always sounds like a negative thing. You audited something, you came up with a lot of issues. I mean, yeah, technically might be right, but I was more looking for a positive thing, like this is the product we are going to create, so that everybody can understand what we are creating. But I'm just trying to brain dump, as I said. You're just watching me and listening to me thinking. I just want to brain dump because I think we should have something that describes what we are going to do, that we can use as a reference point. So if in 2 weeks we are completely going berserk and fiddling around with the lowest level technical detail, we need to figure out, damn, that's really not required. We have other things to do. And that we can take and really tell people, okay, this is what we did, and this is what we tried to achieve, and this is what we did, and we are basically there. We have that wonderful product that we want to show off with Meteor. As I said, just brain dumping, because it feels like if we are looking at the next area, which has another 18 issues, we're going to end up with 45 issues or something, and that is a lot of things that are required to work on, yes. But it's hard to tell, at least Daniel, okay, we know what's next and we know what the product looked like in the end. I think I'm just trying to remind, we need to sell that thing. So where's the prosa that makes the 16 issues of the audit report negative list into a positive list of product features?
I think that answer to your question is that we need to align this project progress to what customers expect from this project to be. And this tracks back to Francesco's idea of basically defining our user stories and checking back on them with them if we are still aligned with the user stories and still delivering what users want us to see as an output of Project Meteor.
So
yes.
So maybe we can start with the like a document, but not a very detailed one. just like I don't know, Project Meteor, general thing we want to do. Then we start with the user story we want. So each of them might have different requirements, of course. But this comes first. Our first user story is the Lyra tutorial. So this is the first use case we are going to provide. And then below, so basically we have a section with user stories. And from these user stories, we might gather requirements on the actual Meteor, right? So the next section is, we start with the first phase, which is, I don't know, understand, I mean, a requirement for the repo is having just a URL. This is valid for all user stories. Then we see that this user story has kubeflow and everything, whatever. Then at some point, if we encounter a user story where it's missing something, then we introduce that in the general backbone of the project. So in this way, we can show these are the user stories we are considering. This is how the project is going on from, I don't know, feature and what it does in reality. And then from there we can basically map all these issues, because maybe some of them are stuff that I don't know, whatever. I saw one thing related to the images. Maybe if the images are already created, for example, they don't need to be rebuilt or stuff like that. That is something that we need to discuss later in any case. But then we can basically map the issue to everything.
I think, on the other hand, though, that these user stories, whatever we call them, should omit any technical details and should basically strip the technical side of things and be basically just an ideological guidance of what the project should deliver. So it's understandable for people like Daniel, who's not tracking our issue boards. And it's basically just gathering what the user wants from the project to be.
Exactly. That is what I just wanted to add. I don't care what technical stuff you guys gonna do. I don't care. I mean, of course I care because for obvious reasons, but in the end, I don't care. I just care about the why. Why do you do that stuff? And that why should be derived from that one user story that we have. And that is what I just put in the document. Maybe it's a good idea to somehow circle around that user story. Yeah, exactly that one. I just copied it into an empty document. Circle around that user story, have a look at it from your own point of view, right? If we are talking about observability and metrics and blah, 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 what might be important, have a little bit of prosa, maybe have one or two additional user stories, not that much, just that you can get a feeling of what the whole system will do, what the whole product feels like and will do for me in the end. And that is basically the why do we have all these GitHub issues? It's to implement that feature set. Maybe it's not working out. I don't know. Maybe the level of user story is low and the level of prosa is a little bit larger. Maybe it's 5 pages and not more. Maybe we just don't need that document, but and have it in a presentation. But I guess at some point in time, we need a little bit of linking prosa, linking between user stories, abstracting away the technical details and just focusing on what we are going to deliver. And now I'm going to stay quiet because we're half an hour in and we have not seen anything. Think about that stuff. Maybe Francesco, if you have an idea, and Hashard and friends have an idea about the build pipeline, maybe think about that. What are the user visible, the user-facing features of the whole build process? What is input? What is output? And talk a little bit about that. Write it down. Maybe there's 2 or 3 user stories in there, and that's it. Maybe it helps. Maybe not. I don't know. So you see me sinking down on my chair. I'm going to bend the lid a little bit and stay quiet.
2 things. This discussion by itself is a good output of the Shooting Star workstream. We've went through Elira, and we discovered that we have a need for something like this. So this is a nice outcome. What I've is kind of loosely connected to this, but last week we had a chat on our Operate First Slack, and Francisco was pointing me to it, and I was discussing there another pretty valid use case for Project Meteor, which I would like to show you right now. Maybe you can consider it as a demo. There's a project under the covers by this person who's using Operate First, and he has this repository as a Jupyter book available with many different stuff. He wants to use this as a teaching tool, educational tool for his students to show them how to do C debugging, how to work with Linux shell and whatnot. And he is using the execute or Jupyter book, run Jupyter book stuff that we've been talking in Jupyter books. And he would like to start this interactively in Operate First. So right now, his link points to our Jupyter Hub without any interaction because it doesn't have the image stream. It doesn't have all these parts that we would like to fill in with Project Meteor. So I don't have any closing sentence or wrap up for this demo, for this short demo, but there already is another project that would heavily benefit from Project Meteor. So this is maybe another user story that we should explore down the road. And I'm going to add this bit into this document, and we can work on it further. Maybe the team behind Shooting Star can also cover this repository or whatnot. That's up to them. So let's move on. Another work stream was for Project Meteor. Was for Comet. That was investigating build pipelines. Few people worked on this and kind of tried to learn the build pipelines, walk through it. What we came up with is a slightly technical design guideline, design outline for the initial POC that we would like to at some point develop. This is still open to discussion, so feel free to suggest any changes. If you see anything working completely differently, just write down into this document. It's part of the disk folder that we have for Project Meteor. I'm gonna link it back into some of the, into this issue. That was for the project Comet. I still mesh all these names together. It's hard for me. So, any questions to Area Comet?
What's the summary of the document?
The summary of the document is basically that our initial POC should not consider reinventing most of the stuff that we already have. In the end, we would like to have it all standalone, but from technical point of view, right now, we would like to integrate with AICO ECI via webhooks. We would like to have a minimal website that is basically triggering those webhooks, listening for events and creating an image stream, and that's it. And also creating a Jupyter book, static HTMLs, and storing them somewhere and hosting them from that location. That's it. Sounds good? Any questions?
Do we have a timeline on this, or are you just like focusing on crawling for this quarter?
From what we've seen as the building blocks that we have available for this crawl phase, most of it is in place. We're lacking, I think, like 2 or 3 big chunks of works, and then it's just wiring things together. So I don't have an exact timeline. I would like to push it to be done in a month or so, but we have a lot of PTOs incoming in this and next month. So we'll see how many people will be working on these tasks and how that works out. So since we would like to do most of these things and all the Project Meteor in 1 quarter, we should be really pushing for it, but it depends. I don't have an exact timeline right now.
Sounds good.
And the third work stream was telescope area.
Yes, so for this work stream, similar to the Comet work stream, we came up with a rough doc, which we're highlighting. Yeah, I think it's linked in the issue there. So this doc is mainly, the purpose of it was to aggregate different metrics while looking at the entire Elira tutorial. And we thought we could classify them in 2 levels, which is a high level and a low level. So by high level, we basically mean that we want to capture the entire tutorial on a holistic level. So basically looking at things like how many new users do we get every week or so, what part of the tutorial took a lot of time for users, and how many of them eventually successfully completed it. So these are things that we can think about from a high level, and also things which are more performance based in terms of the application itself. That is, does it go up and down frequently? So things like availability, the response time of these applications, if there were any bottlenecks while trying to bring up this application that we're coming up with. So these were the high level metrics. And on low level, it's when we actually look at each individual stage of that entire tutorial. So we've laid out currently what's happening in the tutorial, thanks to Francesco's repo and all the documentation we were able to get in that repo. We're just breaking it down into each major step that's happening. And what we thought would be nice is in each individual steps, maybe list out the metrics that would be useful for us. So like when you're setting up the initial environment, what is the time taken to spawn the images? What is the Jupyter Hub or Jupyter Book if we're moving towards that? What's the login success rate and things like that? And once you actually have the tutorial up and running, in that stage, you're basically more concerned on again, like build pipelines and what's happening in the back end with these pipelines, average time taken for these build pipelines to complete. And of course, like how the images are being pushed into Quay and what all these process looks like. And I think the final stage is the entire model itself. So looking at the model being deployed, if we can measure things related to the model itself. I'm not sure how we would do that, but I think it all depends on how we're serving this model. And if the model deployment serving is like Selden, probably we already have metrics through Selden that we can collect regarding these things. So that's what we were able to do this sprint, and also sort of list out what's the possible data source at each of these stages, whether it's Prometheus, whether it's GitHub, or any other data source that we'd probably have to look into. But so far, I think most of them would be Prometheus or GitHub metrics. But yeah, that's what we were able to come up with for this sprint. One of the other outcomes we wanted to achieve was coming up with some sort of, I think, visualization or a flow chart. But I think based on Tom's design document, we'll probably take that over into this sprint so that we can map out what we actually want to achieve in the crawl phase and come up with the flowchart in that manner. So I thought that we could do that in this sprint rather than the previous sprint. But yeah, that was just something I was working on. I don't think it's very relevant, but it's just there. But that's about it for the team telescope.
Great.
Tom, could you go back to that document that we just saw? Because there was one thing that caught my eye. It was called user-facing something.
Yes.
High level. Here, yes, right. So speaking as a product owner, what I would really like to see is how we impact and how people adapt, right? So in the end, Marcel and I and Daniel need to be able to tell, okay, 15 people had a look at our Elira example. They have forked it. They have run it through the tooling, and they use it for whatever. I wonder if user-facing or performance metrics is a good distinction. I mean, it is obviously correct, but maybe it's worth to really have a look at the persona a metric is targeting, right? So I'm pretty sure that the performance or the time required to deliver an up and running Elira tutorial. So the time it takes to deliver the tutorial, that might be an interesting metric. It might be interesting for users. It might be interesting for product owners. It is a performance metric, yeah. But maybe really go ahead and think if in terms of what is it that we're going to present to Daniel in the end.
Yes, I did also think about like you said, exactly how many new users are we getting, or how many onboarding processing we're having. So yes, maybe it's not really user facing, but yeah, we can classify that as something else that we want to look into, like persona, as you mentioned. And the performance is probably good. The persona that would come under would be like operations, more on ops level. So yes, definitely. And I think in the low level metrics, if you look at each of the tutorial, I think I've also listed out, like you just mentioned, how many people are actually forking the repos. So I did have a metric there, number of forked repos and things like that. So having that label as which persona it's targeting, I think would be a good addition. So we could do that further.
Nice.
What do you mean by persona?
I mean the persona. In opposite to user or to person, you have like a category of users, like the OpenShift operator who is doing all the storage management. You can associate a number of user stories with that role. It's not really a role, but it's called a persona. So the role is more a technical term. We implement something like the storage administrator role in OpenShift, and we're gonna grant it access. So we have that role-based access control configured, technical stuff. But if you're talking about product planning, you're talking about that category of user stories that you can cluster together, which are all targeting the same person role, and that is called persona. Most often personas have something like a fancy name. So it's Steven Storage, which is like a 5-year in business storage administrator, which is specialized in container storage, so that you have a little bit of story describing that guy, that person, that persona. It is basically, I guess, a leftover from all these Dungeons and Dragons stuff that all these IT guys are into.
So I guess like the first thing would be to identify all the personas that we want to target, and then once we have that, we can like group the metrics based on them.
Yeah, correct. And just to keep it simple, from my point of view, there is a a product owner, which is interested in marketing and product success, adoption and impact kind of things. And then we have the user who's really using that service, dropping URL, receiving a deployed and ready to go environment. And I'm pretty sure that Tom is another persona in itself, and that Hashard is another persona in itself. And maybe it's a good idea just to write them up like the different personas in that document. That is, by the way, my daughter. She's trying to kill the doorbell. I'm gonna mute myself again.
Finally.
And if I look fancy, I'm just staring at her because she could just walk by the doors and just come in. But I'm pretty sure. See you later.
Okay, now we have time to finish the sprint planning. Let's do it faster than Christoph can jump back in. Okay, so can we consider this one done, Michael?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think finding issues and stuff will be ongoing, but as far as getting everyone up to speed and getting the first set is done, yeah.
Can we consider this one done? I would say yes. Any objections? No? Good.
Is it, Tom, when do we consider that done? If everybody understood how the pipeline works? If everybody from their point of view, from their area, understood how the pipeline works?
In that case, it's a never-ending task, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay.
Okay, what about this one? Hema, can we close this down?
I think I'll just edit that acceptance criteria, probably remove the visualization one and move that into next sprint. But otherwise, I think the other two on the list are pretty much covered in this issue.
Okay, so this one and this one, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, and okay. Let's close.
I can probably create a separate issue for that one so that we can move it to this sprint. Oh, perfect.
Okay, that's it. Anybody has any problems with memberships or permissions? Anymore? Not anymore. Okay. I'm glad that's solved. And we relocated everything to this organization successfully. Good. This is done. For the next sprint, what is the outline of the sprint? What do we want to cover? Michael, for Project Shooting Star or Workstream Project Shooting Start, what is the name? What do we want to cover in the sprint? Just a short reminder, it's a shorter sprint. It's just 4 days. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, so the main thing that we wanted to do to support the project is to convert the Elira tutorial into Jupyter Notebook format. It might be quite simple, but we need to figure out what it is, like that configuration and all that needs to be. And ideally, we will do it once and document it, and we can make sure that it is like automatable in the future. So maybe we can add to this card as well that it will be like documented to a degree of future automation.
What do you mean by it?
What do you mean?
What do you mean by documenting?
Because if we just go ahead and convert the Elira tutorial, I think it'll be possibly pretty simple. I guess we just haven't done it before. So there's maybe some unknown issues that need to be outlined so that in the future.
So something like this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Mhm.
And
Okay. Let's do this then. For comment, I would like us to work on the Jupyter Book pipeline to basically take a repository, run it through the Jupyter Book CLI, and get the HTMLs and store them somewhere. And what I also think we can tackle would be to work or maybe trim down the POC that I did a while back to get some basic thing deployed on Operate First that we can connect to and basically fill in the things. Good. And for the third work stream?
Yes, so I think we'll have to edit what's currently written there, which is collect at least one metric per identified data source. I think we're not ready for that yet. So this sprint, we'll focus on basically defining the metrics by persona, so identifying those personas, and also the flow chart. Since we now have Tom's design doc, I think we're good to move ahead with coming up with that flow chart. So these two things.
Sounds good. Do we want to assign these issues right now, or is it a collective effort?
I think it'll be collective, and yeah, it would be good to have everybody, of course, view the flow chart and stuff. So it's probably going to be a team effort.
Mm-hmm. Michael, what about your work stream? Do you want to assign those issues or have it a collective effort?
I think, yeah, it should be a collective effort. I mean, I don't know, I just self-assigned myself here, but I don't know if everyone else can do that. But yeah, like I said, a collective effort, I think, makes the most sense.
I think in the area commit, it doesn't make much sense to have a collective effort on these things. So I would like to self-assign the trimming down the POC. And I think the pipeline for Jupyter Book is for grabs if anybody wants to start doing a Tecton pipeline for it and extending the ASU ECI with it. Anybody's up for a challenge? Okay, if we don't find a volunteer, we'll do it next sprint.
Yeah, maybe we can go ahead and it is an issue, right? Maybe we can go ahead and put a little more beef onto that issue and really guide what should be implemented. Because I think from a technical point of view, Harshad and colleagues, correct me if I'm wrong, from a technical point of view, it's not that complicated.
It's not.
But you need to walk through it and you need to understand how it's working and stuff like that.
Okay.
So maybe a little bit more guidance is helpful, and then any beginner can pick it up.
Let's do a different task then, and I'm gonna pick it up with Harshad together, and we're gonna do a bit of a documentation on the ASU ACI, how to extend it with a new pipeline, and what to do to basically work on the Jupyter Book pipeline.
No. Let's document what we want to achieve in the issue, because I think documentation for the pipeline is given. So if the documentation for the pipeline is not answering all your questions, open an issue against the documentation.
Okay. In that case, I'm gonna rewrite this, and Harshad may comment on this issue and basically get more detail on it. That's
exactly. I think the description just needs a little bit more work. Maybe a acceptance criteria or so.
Okay. That's it. Everybody happy? Any complaints? Anybody has nothing to do and no work to work on? Raise your hands if you want some more work. Okay, nobody's raising their hands. How typical of you. Good. In this case, let's call it a day. We're right at top of the hour, so it worked just fine. 5 minutes. We're 5 minutes short, so what we're going to do in next 5 minutes, I think that's up to you. Let's call it a day. Thank you very much. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, all. Hey, Mashad, what's happening?
All good. I couldn't talk that time, so that's why I was chatting. I was texting on the chat.
That's good. That's good.
There was a conflict between the meetings, and they also needed me and here also, so that's why I had to stick with that.
We were relying on you. It's just easy to like make Harshad uncomfortable with these queries. Sorry, Harshad. Sorry.
No, okay. We need to have a look at the hierarchies here right now, right? Tom, I would like to ask you to not play these mental like bullying things on my people. It is not good for their mental health. It is not good for the team spirit and stuff like that. Please watch out. Good.
You're cruel.
I just wonder, do we have any? So I didn't stick around on purpose, right? It's just my usual behavior to sometimes stay on meetings late. Just want to see who's dropping last, right? So I'm used to pay the bill. That is why I stay late. Is it that we can utilize Gregory a little bit more for stuff like that? Is it that we can reframe what he's doing? Might be a good resource if we want to talk about resource here.
Definitely. Yes.
Good.
I would also like to get some of the folks working on Operate First from the engineering point of view to get their hands dirty with AICI, ECI and get the experience, because right now, when there's any problem with any of the CI Pro related stuff, we go to Harshad and basically hunt him down to fix our issues. So if we can make, I don't know, Anand, Humer, whoever, to get their hands dirty with AICI, ECI and know where the code lives and how to debug these things, we may be more self-sufficient on the Operate First side of things. So that may also help.
Yeah, that is a little bit larger discussion, and that is what Marcel and I had on our minds as we moved Operate First and Harshad a little bit closer together, right? There should be somebody who's able to operate all these applications. And AICI, ECI is just an application, as Pro is just an application. So it would really be cool if we can ramp up the SRE team or the people taking care of applications to do all that stuff. Because right now, I mean, that's true for basically everybody. But right now, Harshad is creating the pipeline and operating the pipeline, being a little bit more in the role of creating and backing up operations, and having separate operations might be good. Let's see how we can do that. Maybe it's really a good idea to enable Anand to do stuff like that. I don't know what else he got on his plate, but yeah, might be an opportunity. Same for Gregory, right? So if he can understand and extend the pipeline, great, would be cool.
We had thought about Gregory before on this topic. I mean, with Umer, But the thing was, with this topic, we were already involving a lot of people to volunteer and work on it. So it felt like if someone volunteers and pick that stuff which